All right, we are live here on the second week of the Trish.0 show. Today we have as our guest Jake Sherman from Washington Talent Agency. I think I'm determined to have you all come on the show, like just everyone from your
The
company,
whole team.
just the whole
Um,
just the whole thing. We had Brian last week. We have you today. It's all good. It's all good. Jake, tell the people who you are and what you do.
oh, that's a great one. So, like Trish said, I am Jake Sherman from Washington Talent. I run the marketing department, and I'm also a DJ for them. Weddings, corporate wedding, mitzvah. Forgot the mitzvah, but so yeah, that is part of what I do, and I help us deliver happiness one event at a time. What we do.
Oh my, that's so funny. And and so Brian kind of got into um who your company was and how it was founded. Um you know, like like it was your dad, like this is a family affair. And I
Absolutely.
think that's kind of like the point of today's show is that we're talking about this being, like what happens when it's your family business, right? Like everybody's talking about their company and about like maybe being single proprietors, but this now you're talking about legacy.
Yeah.
So how is that?
Well, it's pretty big shoes to fill, I guess, on my end. So, growing up my whole life, yeah, it's actually kind of, some of the things I say when I'm talking to customers in general, whether I'm DJing or I'm, selling an event of any kind. It's, this isn't just some side gig for me. This isn't a weekend thing. This isn't just a job I have right now. This paid for my diapers.
Right.
So this is my life. And obviously I'm in it not to just be here temporarily. This is, how I want to support my family and, you know, throughout the rest of my days till I'm ready to retire. I'm Team WTA for life. I'm stuck with it, but I love what I do, and I don't think everyone can say that they love what they do every single day. But I figured out at an early. I mean, I just turned 27 yesterday, so I know I'm still, I think, in the industry relatively young. But this is the forever for me.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things like once you've got to take that mentality that this is the long game for you,
Sure.
then that really affects your thinking. Like were you guys like has it pretty much been that you all are letting your individual consultants, your contractors, well, I guess like your salespeople and stuff handle all the client calls that have come through, or have you personally had to deal with any of that?
Yeah, so as far as me as a on the performer end, I haven't had to deal with any customers. I mean, I have reached out to a few via email as the DJ, just saying, hey, I'm here for you. If you need me, hit me up. If you want to go over some wedding stuff, I'm still here. But as far as dealing with the customers, it has normally been, the process is when you call into Washington Talent, um, you speak with one of our event consultants and they deal with the customer on that front. So my dad and his partner Chuck have been Chuck is a big event consultant himself, so he's handling a lot of customers on his own. My dad, who kind of runs the back end financial thing, way of things, he has really not been dealing with as many customers. He's more been helping out the consultants as far as things to say and how to address it and the money situation and what our stance has been and how we've been trying to help everyone get through this, including our performers and everybody else.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's certainly it's like it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot of, balls to juggle. Um, like and you have to kind of think at a certain point in time, um, you know, like when does that become like just too much? Like do you start making sort of like have you guys thought about that? Like, okay, so we've got a plan until May and then we've got a plan until June, but then this is what happens if that extends much further past, or how do we pivot? Like, how do we pivot?
Well, it's a great question, and
Yeah.
I think the most I've tried to be as positive as I can about the whole situation, because although us at Washington, we've never seen anything like this. No one has. So I explained to him that everyone down the street that is a DJ company, entertainment company, photography, whatever it is, everyone is in this together.
Right.
So I think for the longest time, we've always been pretty smart about what we do with deposits and money that comes in, and not really spending it, because to us, that's not really our money yet. That's us holding a date, and for us to take that money and move. We always have been really, really great at conserving that and saving that up and making sure we don't, spend that. So as of right now, we haven't really looked at a date where it's like, oh no, we're in trouble. Um,
Okay.
as of right now, it's really just been kind of I guess retreat. We're retreating and we're sitting and we're waiting and we're still taking calls and still operating as normally as we can.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Have you seen leads coming in and how that's been for you? But it's been definitely
I've actually
down.
seen some. Yeah, I've seen. I mean, it's definitely down, but I've definitely seen some leads come in because people are
Sure.
still, people still have parties to plan, and still people still
Yeah.
have, Ooh, all right, smacked my computer there. It's all right. It's all right. It wouldn't be a show unless I smack something or move something completely out of its socket.
That's okay.
I don't know if you caught like Cecily's last week. I'm gonna have to redo hers, but for like the solid first minute and a half, I had my headphone plugged into my computer, but I was recording with my phone, which was a very convoluted setup. So basically, you could hear me, you could not hear Cecily, and then her father decided to like FaceTime her in the middle of the that first minute to basically just tell us like, hey, like just get your shit together. I don't know if you
Cecily, we
remember
love
that.
you.
We love Cecily, and so she was fantastically good spirited about the whole thing. But yeah, it's been, I mean, so for me, I've been surprised to see any leads come through. I think that's been the most surprising thing,
Yeah.
out of anything. But how about you? Like this, you and we were talking about how, it was 2020 was gearing up to be such an amazing year for the both of us. And now you've got this like hard stop. So what have you been doing the last few weeks? Like, aside from business, like, taking walks in the woods, communing with nature, what's day in the life of with Jake?
Oh wow. Yeah. So we're really gonna get personal here. So here's the deal. I've decided that I'm gonna come out of this whole madness whenever we're out and about again. Everyone's gonna be like, Jake, what happened? Did you lose some weight? So instead of
Hey,
sitting around
yep.
and stuffing my face, I've been trying
Which
to do
is
the opposite.
fantastically tempting.
I know, and you know what? I'm sure plenty of people are doing it, and on a normal basis, that's what I
Yeah.
would do. I'm quite good at it. Uh, but I've been going on walks on almost pretty much daily whenever I can. Yesterday I went for a 3 mile walk, which was great, and
Fabulous.
I'm gonna keep walking till I can jog.
Okay.
Um,
All
so
right.
I've been
Go
trying
right
to do
ahead.
that, and my lovely girlfriend and I, well, I have seen all the Marvel movies. I'm catching her up on them.
Ah, nice.
So we started from the very beginning,
Okay.
and there's some site that basically tells you the chronological order of when you're supposed to watch. So I'm like all in explaining it. She's getting it, but these things take time.
It does take time. I've seen all of the movies, but it does, like, it takes time to sort of like, get somebody into it, get into the storyline, and the whole night. I mean, is she doing this to like humor you, or is she getting into it?
Well, I think it started just to humor me. Like I think
Okay.
she
All
was
right. That's fair
just.
enough. Yeah.
I think it was, hey, I'm going to make Jake happy,
Yeah.
and then it turned into, hey, I might actually be into this. Oh, Thor's good looking, like yeah, it all happened. So
You've got all the Chris's, all the Chris's
oh yeah,
going
there's
at
a
it,
lot of Chris's.
and that's not a bad thing. What's
Oh,
happening? If you catch me looking down, it's because I'm trying to like, it's hard. You know what? Like you do a lot of video editing and like you do like tech stuff. I mean, not like hardcore, but I assume you dabble.
yeah, basic. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah. And you guys just produced like this really cool sort of like COVID video for WTA where you were interviewing a bunch of people.
yeah.
That's hard. It's hard to be like both live and editor at the same time because now I'm like, oh, is this thing? Am I live on Facebook? Am I good? I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to juggle these different things. But has this always been your jam? Like, did you when you grew up, when you were growing up, I should say, was this going to be like the career for you, or did you kind of eventually just fall into it because you're just like, yeah.
No,
Could be worse.
it's a good question.
Yeah.
So my whole life, when you're growing up and you're a child, even when I was bar mitzvah 2006, oh my god! But when that did happen, my whole life growing up, it was always I'm going to take Washington Town. Washington Town will be mine. So as a kid, you say that, and it's kind of like, hey, I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. It's all that. I want to Washington Town. Always my thing. Now, it wasn't
Right.
until I was, oh God, I guess early in college where I started to realize what Washington Talent really was. And it was, way more than me just going to the band showcases or seeing a mitzvah showcase that we threw every, quarter. I started to really get, involved. And I guess in middle school, I was just the roadie. So I would just load in my dad's band Onyx, and they were doing probably 50, 60 events a year. So I was going all over DC, Maryland, Virginia, loading in, and I was only that aspect of it. And I was a great roadie. I was throwing the equipment around because I was a young kid just doing it. But I really didn't start getting into the process of what WTA does until college. I went and interned there briefly. And really, honestly, I was just going through their database and cleaning out and doing really easy, basic things. Like, for example, Trish, if you were like, hey, you know what, Jake, I'm sick of the emails WTA sends me. They send too many newsletters. It's annoying. I would then go through that list of people that unsubscribe from the emails and just make sure they don't get emailed again.
Right.
So
Like basic stuff.
exactly, the basic stuff. And towards the tail end, I was starting to DJ early into college too. And the reason why is I wasn't a musician. So if I was a musician, I would definitely be in one of the bands. I tried when I was younger.
Okay.
It never worked. And I oh my God, my dream is to play. Who says this though? My dream is to play in one of those bands. I love it.
Oh wow. Okay. But well, maybe eventually they'll let you in with the tambourine or something.
Yeah, I'll play the congas. The band leader here on the congas.
So small.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. You could.
Yeah, I rap a mean Eminem.
Oh, nice. Nice. Fantastic.
So
But that's good. That's good though.
Yeah, and then I'd say towards the end of college, my dad and I had a conversation, and I think he just wanted to make sure that. Oh, he might be coming behind us. That's Robert, by the way. There he is. How are you?
How are you?
Your dad, you're on a live right now. A live interview. That's nice.
Yeah.
We're talking about WTA.
Have fun.
Love you. See you soon.
That's
Isn't that great?
That's fabulous.
So, before as long as everyone knows, I was about a month away from buying my first home before COVID hit. Just to be clear, I was going into the busy season. I have the money sitting there ready to go. But yeah, we'll check in the next time I'll be in a house when this is over, hopefully.
Well, that's amazing, though. That's amazing that you've done that.
Well, my parents have been very gracious and allowed me to stay here. And during that time, I was pretty smart with my money, or as smart as I could be with my money. And living in Montgomery County is pretty tough to buy a home. It's pretty expensive because I want to be near Washington Town because we're stationed in Rockville.
Right.
So I was getting ready to gear up, and then no more events. So, which a big part of my income is DJing and the weekend work. And I guess what got me to Washington Talent was towards the tail end, my dad had a conversation with me and said, hey, Jake, I know you're all in here, but I just don't really trust the fact that you haven't had any more experience. You haven't had any other job. For you to just come right into Washington Talent, it's tough for me. Well, I kind of took it as a heartbreaking moment because I was like, man, this is what I wanted my whole life. What are you talking about?
Right.
And during my summers, I would run a summer camp, and I ended up a place called Kids Co. They're awesome. And they're year round. And I ended up just working the summers. And then I was the first person in the company's history, apparently, to be a director of just the summer section. So the 10 weeks, it was at Little Bennett Elementary School in Clarksburg. So up north a little bit. So then my next thought process was, okay, well, Washington Talent during the week isn't in my future. So why don't I go back to school and become a teacher of some kind? And I was actually in the process of PE.
Okay.
So I got accepted to a post-bac program at Towson. I went there. I was there about 2 years, and I needed about another year and a half or so. And Trish, I got to tell you, this is true story. I'm like at an internship of some kind at a school in Westminster. And I guess one of the teachers was just telling a story about how they were going to go see a high school football game that weekend or whatever. They were talking about all these high school kids and how great they were. And they left. They're like, oh, okay. So I'm sitting in the room by myself. And I'm like, is this going to be my life? And I know some people that can be someone's life. I mean, people love that. Like, and there's no disrespect to anyone that chooses that life. But I was like, am I going to be, in my 40s and 50s being like, man, you see that running back over at that school down in Westminster? So this is the totally craziest thing. That day finished. I got in the car. I called my dad. And by the way, if you can't tell, my dad's like my best friend. So it was even harder him telling me that I wasn't right for this. So I call him on the phone. I said, here's the deal. I said, I can't do this. I said, I would love to come work for you. I said, I'll work for free. I live at home. So I'll work for free. Give me 4 months. If you don't think I'm right, I'll find another job. I'll sell ice to Eskimos.
Okay.
And if he said no, I would go find another job. I was going to figure it out my own way. I was still going to DJ. Wasn't going to affect my weekend work. I was going to find a 9 to 5 during the week so I'd still be able to work the weekends.
Okay.
But I knew I was not going to go the teaching route. Well, he took me up on the deal. he took me for 4 months. And by the way, when I told him, I said, if you don't think I can run the company, meaning I told him in 4 months, I'm going to show him that I will eventually be able to run the company. If you don't think I can do that, tell me in the 4 months and I will move on. Because to me, I didn't want to go into Washington Talent if I wasn't going to own it when it was all said and done.
Yeah.
Very, very important, and it's the truth. So I've been with him how long now? 2 years? So,
2 years later. And,
2 years later.
He had a change of heart somewhere.
I'm gonna get a little emotional with you, and this would be whether we were live or not live. But the other day, he said to me, "Jake, at first I didn't want you in this at all, and now I can't imagine it without you." So it was
amazing.
It was a very, very emotional time. Yeah, very emotional. So
that's cute. That's so cute. Go Dad. I love. Well, go Jake for proving Dad, wrong. Really. Well, maybe you just need. I don't know if that was necessarily wrong. It's he just saw that at that certain point in time in your life.
sure.
The trajectory that you were going, the way your personality was at that point in time. I'm sure he looked at you then and said, no, this is just not going to be the right fit for you right now.
Absolutely.
But then once you made the mental shift to then do what you needed to do to take on that level of responsibility, that's what made the difference.
Sure.
And I think that goes, for a lot of people out there, who are kind of, struggling at this point in time with like their businesses and, what this kind of looks like in the future. And we were talking about, it's all about like mental, it's about perspective, right? It's mental acuity, it's mental preparation for the future. That once you start looking at this as the long game, then this doesn't look as scary of a situation,
Absolutely.
you know. And you, like, when did you graduate college? Because you said your bar mitzvah was 2006, so we know you're a youngin.
Yes. So I graduated college with a degree in business administration, actually from Stevenson University up in Baltimore. Used to be called Villa Julie, if anyone from the Baltimore area would remember it. It was an all-girls school at one point. Obviously not when I went there, but I graduated in 2015 there. And
Okay,
then
all right. So this is kind of like your first up at bat, in terms of like any sort of, major business challenge, like like a national, well, in this case, global business challenge.
total.
So you're coming to us with like a very, sort of fresh perspective, whereas some of us might be a little bit battle scarred, some of us a little bit more battle scarred than others.
Sure.
You're coming at this in a very sort of fresh, take. And do you find like when you're looking at, things being posted in social media and when you're looking at things online, do you find that your perspective doesn't necessarily match what's out there? in a better way?
You know, I definitely study the social media in our industry quite a
Yeah.
bit. You know, I do run the social media for Washington Talent, and
Also for NACE, National Association
I
for Catering and
yes,
Events.
hey, there's the plug.
There's the plug.
Um, and you know, I notice just people in the industry. I think most people have been very, very positive and uplifting. I have noticed some accounts that used to post don't really post at all right now because business has kind of been on pause. I don't know. I mean, certain people that I think posted a decent amount have kind of slowed down. I think some people even come out and tried to even promote their services still during this time, which is interesting, kind of up in the air. Um, but I overall, I mean, if you look at some of the recent posts that I put out, it's been more like, "Hey, we're going to party again soon. This is going to happen."
Yeah.
So you know, staying positive, we'll get through this. That is what I've seen overall, and
Right.
that makes me happy. You know, from someone who's kind of, I guess, really new to all this and never experienced something like this. I just can't imagine what, you know, I just know what we're going through, and we've been around a long time. We're considered a large company. I can't imagine what some of other smaller companies or even single just people are dealing with, you know. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, you know, it's all a little bit nuts out there. And, you know, well, and in terms of then, you know, how that's going to look like, you know, coming out, like how are, you know, we talked about your clients, we talked about you as a Washington Talent, like as a family company. How's the talent? How are the musicians and the DJs? How are they all? Do you find that a lot of them were doing this as a full-time job, or that some of these, that like most of these were like gig people, they were doing this as side gigs?
Yeah, there has been quite a few people we've reached out to just to check in on. I think luckily a lot of our guys do not do this full time, so they do have other, you know, gigs during the week where they've
Yeah.
either been, you know, furloughed in that job and collecting unemployment and actually getting some kind of income.
Right.
Um, but there are the few, you know, as far as the band world goes, more than anything else, I think some of those guys are full time musicians, and
Yeah.
those are the ones that are really, really going through a hard time. And really, we've been calling them, checking in on them, and making sure everything's okay. And obviously, with times like this, uh, your heart breaks for them. Luckily, there's not too many of them. I'd
Yeah.
say we probably can count on our hands how many full-time musicians there are, but there are still some out there in our company that their whole life relied on gigging, whether it was a bar gig during the week and then, you know, gigging with us on the weekends. It is it's crazy. And we definitely, anything we can do to help our people, we've been helping our people with. You know, it's just
Have
been,
you guys thought about it like an online, you know, like of course the, you know, the first couple of weeks there were sort of these DJs that were running DJ parties, and then there were other entertainment companies that were doing sort of like online entertainment with tip jars,
yeah.
you know, virtual tip jars. Have you guys, have they been doing their own, or has WTA thought about doing sort of um, coordinating some sort of like a day of music or something?
Sure. You know, I was really thinking about personally being a DJ Jake live.
Why
Um,
not?
you know, I've really been thinking about it. And, you know, I think the biggest thing, you know, for us as a company, if our guys do it individually, that's, you know, up to them and we have no problem with that. I personally have a hard time with the whole tip jar thing, only
Okay.
because I just think that we're in a time where we're all hurting together. And for me to be like, oh, hey, Trish, please, you know, give me a couple bucks.
It's true.
It's tough. Now, as an individual basis, they can do whatever they want. But as on a Washington talent front, I have a really hard time with that just because I think we're hurting terribly, but so is every other person next to you or the
Right.
house over. So it's kind of tough for me to see that. I mean, I get it. I'm not knocking anyone that does it, but as of right now, we've kind of taken the stance of, hey, you know, we're going to handle our people internally if we need to. If they need something, we'll take care of them. But I think the live to me is more of an inspiring thing for everyone around to listen to good music and things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it keeps them top of mind, you know,
sure,
even if they don't collect money, it keeps them, it's
it
like it keeps the
does.
good vibes going.
So I was going to tell you that video you
Yeah.
saw about the mitzvah MCs. that was created.
Yep.
I'm not going to take credit for that or anything, but that was my idea from the start. And it actually was an idea brought by one of our MCs, MC Chad, had done a similar video to this about 2 years ago. And it was just referring to intro songs at a mitzvah and just trying to get information out there. And I remember I recorded my own portion of it for that video. And I was like, wow, during this time, like, wouldn't it be great for our guys to, reach out and have that kind of idea? So it ended up being great. And just so you know, it's almost in the works now. I've got a bunch of our band guys to jump in and do something similar. So I'm actually going to be creating another video. It's almost done of my band guys, but guys and girls, and just kind of sending videos in and to everybody in the industry, our clients, just saying, hey, we're going to get through this. They have a little bit of music playing, singing. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So it should be
a little bit of something.
Exactly. It should definitely be coming out here in the next week or so. So
keep an eye. I mean, that's going to be fabulous. I'm like, I had no idea you were such a policy nerd.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. So are you finding like this has been like your coping mechanism? Like, you know what, like I can't do much, but I can do this.
No, you're right. You hit it right on the head, actually. I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, there really isn't much I feel like I can do sometimes. I feel like, actually, the last couple of weeks I've been feeling like, man, what can I contribute to WTA? And a big part of my job is to go out and build relationships and obviously, you see me, I network as much as I can.
Right.
But, I feel like my legs have been cut off for this, because we can't, obviously there's still things going on, webinars and Zoom meetings and things like that, but it's way different than, there were a lot of stuff coming up that ended up stopping because of this. So it's been.
Have you been watching any of those Zoom meetings and all that the different things? Like what content have you been finding personally very helpful?
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit. I think looking into the loans, and a lot of people have jumped all over the place of where you can get these small business loans and things like that. It's been really educational for me to run back to my dad and everyone else to see what I've heard and what everyone's doing. And then really, I think dealing with kind of the stress, because the first week of this, I was like, oh my God, what? I feel like I was pulling my hair out because I'm looking at my computer screen, looking at my email and being like, what can I do right now? What's the situation? Our fund situation, how much, there's marketing, in my opinion, right now, it's not a great idea in any form. It's kind of like I said about the tip jar. For me to promote on, my business on Facebook to a customer, to be like, oh, hey, spend your money right now. You're furloughed, but yeah, sure, spend your money. And that's tough for me.
Yeah, it's a valid perspective. It's certainly like different people have different perspectives on it.
Sure.
Where like that first week, I was getting still a lot of like solicitation type of emails from people. And so I just kind of put that out there on my Facebook feed where I was like, hey, everybody else who's out there and you're kind of like looking, at these things coming through, how do you feel about them? So I had everyone from like your perspective where it's like, you know what, distasteful, not the right time, not the right, just lay off for a little bit. To other people who were like, people still want to promote their business and people still have businesses to run, and there might be people out there who still need things from certain businesses,
Sure.
or who might be able to. So kind of getting to the point of people who are controlling the third. I'm kind of wondering what kind of feedback of the musical talent that has done this over the last few weeks, what kind of feedback they've received. Has it been positive? Has it been negative? What's the deal?
Yeah. For the DJs that I've spoken to that have gone live themselves and just done that kind of thing, they've loved it. And I think more the fact that people are watching them and liking them and giving them positive feedback and everything else, I think that alone can take someone, and even if it doesn't help you for the rest of the week, but if it helps you for that one night, go to sleep. Right. I think that has helped a bunch of my guys. And I think the musicians, and no matter even DJs, I think it's their escape. So even when they do that live for 30 minutes or an hour or however long until Facebook shuts them down for copyright, however long that happens,
Right,
um,
right, right.
I think that it's just like me, it's an escape. So for those half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever long you're doing it, you forget we're in COVID-19 almost for a minute. And I think that is super, super important. I think that whether you're a musician or anything, or if you're a planner and want to design somebody or design someone's wedding, that might be your escape, however long you're
Right.
planning and working that out. So I think the biggest thing that I've gotten out of everybody has been, hey, it's my escape. If I can't do that, what can I do?
Yeah, if
It's
you can't do that, like what can you do?
exactly.
And I feel like at least then, and I don't know what's worse, having like a sunny day outside, where people are like, oh, it's beautiful and sunny, but you can't go anywhere, or having it be like a wet, miserable day as it is today, where you're now you're forced to be inside.
Yeah.
Now you're like really, that, that's it. These are your four walls, and that's the end of that. I don't know. But it's kind of like the same thing with anything else. It's like, is it better to, just sit back quietly and not do anything, or at least then just be present in the world, and create beautiful music and create content, and all that fun stuff. But I mean, aside from music, I mean, music has always been sort of the backbone of WTA. But you also had a fair amount of like photographers and photo booth, and different things like that. So can you talk about the photographers at all, or has that just not been quite as big of an effect as the musical component of the business?
Well, it's interesting. Our video department, they've pretty much been stopped completely. Jack Hartzman, who runs our photo department, he's been in the industry quite a long time.
Okay.
Uh, Great guy, great friend. He actually, this is gonna be a little bad, but he shot my bris. That's how long he's known my family. So he met my dad a long time ago. I guess they were shooting. He was shooting a wedding that Onyx was doing back in the mid '80s. So
Right, right, right.
before I was even a thought. So I've known Jack a long time, and I know he actually shot. He did it. I guess it was an event recently where it was like an outdoor thing, and they were comfortable with him shooting. He was probably there's a picture of it somewhere of him actually shooting this like little get together. There was three people at a home getting together, and they wanted a photo shoot of some kind. And he set up a tripod. He was probably 15 feet away, I would say,
Right.
and it was outdoor, and he shot a couple photos of them, different angles, and then he left. So that's the only gig I know recently that he's done, which was pretty cool, and it was nice. But yeah, it's been the other photographers that are with Washington Talent. I can't even, I actually haven't reached out to them. Me personally, I probably should. Actually, when we hang up here, I'll
Right.
jump on
Just
that.
do right. Just like nice little reminder. No
But
problem.
it's like I'm assuming they're gonna hopefully they're all with their families, everyone's safe,
Yeah.
with everybody. Maybe they're still shooting things around the house and maybe outside taking a little walk, still being able to do what they love. I'm assuming when they're behind the lens, that's their escape, right? I hope I'm not a photographer, but that's my hope, and hoping they're still doing that to stay busy. The videographers too. I feel terrible. We have two main videographers that have been with us for over 15 years. Jeff, who works at our office, he's like our IT guy and runs
Okay.
video, and then
Okay.
Dave's another shooter for us. So they're like our two main shooters, our main guys. We have other guys that we use quite a bit, but it's always the first two video jobs up first, and then we go from there. But yeah, those guys. And I know they love what they do. I mean, I know Jeff loves his day job, but Jeff's so much bigger. He loves the video. That's what he does. So, which is amazing. A couple of weeks ago, we did a wedding in Florida, and he got flown out there to go shoot it. And that's what he was Mr.
Nice.
Videographer out there. And then he's stuck at home. It's just feeling like you're out and about, and then not so much anymore.
Yeah, it's up and
Uh,
down and not so much anymore, but that's kind of the name of the game. Um, and were you always like a big sports guy? Did you follow a lot of the teams when they were playing?
oh yeah, I'm a big Redskin fan. take a
So
deep
are you
breath.
feeling it now? So now are you feeling like how did that impact we haven't talked about that at all, where they've kind
Sure.
of at least removed, at least when you're talking about a snowstorm or, some other, national catastrophe that's going on, somewhere in the world, if you're a sports fan, you can catch that too can be an escape. But have you guys like done, have you felt that at all yet, or no? Or has that not really hit?
Well, I do like all sports. Yeah, I do. I mean, I know basketball got cut, and hockey, everything's stopped, obviously.
Right.
But for me, football is like really, really like my heart is there. So,
Right.
I got to watch the Super Bowl season ended. That was great. What's really going to hurt is if this is still going on in August and preseason, football can't start.
Oh,
That is when it's really when I'm going to be like, oh no, like what is happening? Like that's a tough one for me. Um, and of course, football season happens to be when busy season is for us.
right.
September, October, November. Um, so, I always miss a couple Sundays because of weddings and whatnot or anything going on. But that's my escape. Monday Night Football. That's the big.
Yes.
So uh, I'm really, really hoping, Trish, we don't have to have this conversation in August where football is canceled. But it's funny. Even if football isn't canceled,
Oh,
I
yeah.
usually go to games every year. I was a season ticket holder for 20 years. My family was, not me.
Really.
But we've been
I
skins
was about to
season.
say, I'm like, man, you started young.
Yeah, man, I was
Like,
making a ton of money from
right.
getting
From
out of the
birth.
womb. Yeah,
Right, right, right.
DJ, infant Jake. Um, but yeah, so I think it's pretty crazy just listening to what the future holds at those events, as far as the
Yeah.
people in the stadiums. And look, as long as it's on TV, I'll be okay.
All
But
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
can you imagine
All
never? I
right.
mean, people not being able to go to sporting events, baseball. I mean, football, basketball.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like, people talk about the events industry, but I've said it before, events really encompasses everything from the celebration of birth to the memorialization of a life lived, and at a funeral, everything in between. It's weddings. It's weddings. Yes, it's mitzvahs. Yes, it's sweet 16s. It's also sporting events.
It is.
It's also conferences. It's also, every reason. It's church events. It's every reason that people have to congregate in a space. That's events. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see like what happens from like the national sporting perspective. Like how are we going to handle that? Because I think, if you're talking about, a synagogue or a church and they have to go to a virtual format for services, it's challenging for sure, but it can be done. I mean, God doesn't care where you are, just as long as you're, doing what you need to be doing.
Sure.
If that's what your belief system is, but sports, it's like, you know, you're not only talking about then a crowd that wouldn't be gathering, but then you're the players. Like, do all the players then have to be tested? And if the players, don't test correctly, then they're out of the game. That's like a whole other logistical nightmare.
Nightmare.
Ugh, I can't imagine being like on the end of that. And we're talking about like billions of dollars in industry. Um,
Oh, I know. And we
you know,
talked about it briefly earlier, but even on a
yeah,
small scale of us, it's like, how do you make a decision if you have a 200-person wedding,
yeah,
in the next couple months? How do we, without a vaccine of some kind? But, even then, I was thinking to myself, I could be wrong what I read, but, the flu vaccine is like, what, 40% effective? What I've heard is not 100%.
yeah. I mean, it never has been. It's
Yeah.
really more, well, because every year there's a different strain of flu.
Yep.
So you have to get that new, you have to get the update, and I mean, so it becomes like a whole thing.
Yep.
So a lot of people that never got the flu vaccine because they just never found it effective. I have personally been on and off with a flu vaccine. Some years I get it, some years I don't.
Me too, actually.
Um, the last time I had the flu, knock on wood, it's been about 15 years. You know, but I've had other things. I've had bronchial infections. I've had colds. I've had sinus infections. Speaking of which, you know, I know I have to remember to do that. You know, but it's managing, you know, it's managing all these things. I mean, talk about something that kind of hits you where it hurts, right? Like, um, you know, I think we were all thinking this was going to hit us in the form of a zombie apocalypse, but it ends up hitting us in the form of, you know, a fever, and that's it. You know, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's just unreal. It's almost, I wake up and I'm, I had my birthday. You wish me happy birthday yesterday. Thank you for that.
Yes, happy
So
birthday.
it was weird. I was sitting at the table last night having dinner with my family, and I was just like, wow, I'm glad I was having dinner with my family on a Saturday or a Sunday. Actually, I was supposed to have a wedding in Bethesda that got moved, obviously. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I'm really glad I'm here, but I shouldn't even be here having dinner with you guys right now. I should be having dinner with myself. Or I don't really eat on the gigs, but I'd be watching someone get married. It's just weird. And I always think to myself, where would I be normally? Saturday night, I was sitting at home watching Marvel movies. And it was just like, wow. I sometimes you need a break, right, from the weekend
Right.
life,
This is true.
but I didn't want this kind of break. I wanted it on my terms.
I'm the same. I needed a break. I wanted a break. This was not the break that I wanted. I wanted to be on a beach somewhere. I wanted to be on a beach somewhere, or in a fabulous city somewhere. I wanted to be like, on a true vacation.
Yeah.
But you take what you can get.
Well, I
You know.
said this, and I might have already said it to you, but the one positive thing I can get out of this is that this is not just a Maryland, D.C., Virginia thing. This
Yeah.
isn't just a New York thing. This isn't just the United States. This is the whole world is
Right.
fighting this.
Exactly.
So for me, I think to myself, okay, let's take. I mean, look, I consider myself sometimes smart. Could be a decently smart guy, but the most intelligent humans on our entire planet are the only thing they're doing right now is trying to kill this thing, this
Right.
virus.
Right.
So
Everyone's on it.
exactly. So to me, we've spread out at times and been on certain things, whether it's a cancer or it's a disease, whatever it is, but it's never all at one time.
Right.
Right now, we've stopped all that we're doing, and it's all, hey, listen, let's crush this thing.
Right.
So that is my positive light throughout. So I know, like, through the whole thing, uh, I just think we're going to get out of this, and sooner than later, I guess, in my mind, because I think as a human race, we can always pull it together, hopefully.
I think
So,
so. I think you're right about that. I think that a lot of people are, super focused on this right now. And in the end, we're going to pull through. We're definitely going to pull through, and especially, but it's beautiful that you all are, doing this as a family, and that you're all, um, sort of in it together, because I think that, just lends that extra layer of support
sure,
that maybe I think a lot of other companies are not, privy to, or they don't have,
sure.
where this is all very personal for you all. So now, so you personally, were you like someone who went out to dinners and like did a whole lot of social things beforehand, or was it never really like a thing for you anyway because you were working all the time?
My life was social.
Okay.
So I, if I wasn't out with one of the entertainers or one of the people in the company, I was out at a meeting. I was at a
Okay.
networking event.
Yeah.
I, and look, I would say my week was pretty split. I would spend a lot of nights at the office and a lot of nights out and about. But I was hours weren't even a thing to me. And a
Right.
lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, Jake, you're working, you're going out to dinner." But it's like, no, it's different than that. Trish, if you're out at a dinner with someone in the industry and you're building a relationship, whether it's with a photographer or someone in a
Oh yeah.
venue, someone you're building a relationship with to help you, and you can help each other. So it's when you're not in the events industry, you just don't know.
Right. That's
So
it. That's exactly it. So, final thought. I'm trying to wrap up all my interviews in the same sort of method. Everything breaks. Everything returns back to normal. Think we can go out and do whatever the hell we want to do. What's your first meal out of the gate?
wow.
right? Good question, right?
Oh, this is a tough one. Okay, so we're gonna assume that I'm off the rails for the
Yep,
meal.
right. It's your first one out of the gate, and you're just like, screw it. Your first post-COVID normal life meal.
Oh God. Okay. I am either going to DC or there's one in Bethesda too. But I am heading to a Morton's Steakhouse or a Ruth Chris Steakhouse, and I'm closing the place. Absolutely. I mean, the bread and the appetizers and the drinks.
Everything.
It's going to be a table for one. Check will be $400. That's the plan.
Porterhouse, red wine, blue
Oh my God! Of
cheese,
course.
cream spinach, the whole thing. Just put the whole cow on the table and have at it.
Actually, if my girlfriend watches this, she'll want to know. She'll be there too. So it'll be an $800 meal with tip.
Be generous about it, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I can't do it alone.
Right.
So
Oh
that's the plan. One of those places could be Capitol Grill. Everybody in that realm. There's Mastro's in DC. It's super nice.
I'm getting that a lot. I've gotten that a few times where people are like steakhouses. We just want to go out for a really beautiful steak.
Oh, they're gonna boom.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know that they're open. I mean, for takeout.
Yeah, for takeout, sure.
If you really want to do that for takeout.
Yeah.
But there is nothing.
Just no income coming in right now.
Right, but who wants to spend $50 on a steak?
Yeah.
You know. But that's gorgeous. All right.
What about you?
Yeah. Me, so I think I'm going. I think Mexican is going to be my next. Is going to be my big, night out. I'm gonna have
Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's either going to be Mexican or it's going to be sushi. Something that I can't really have well at home. And so I haven't really completely decided yet what it's going to be, but I'm taking suggestions.
Oh man, that's classic.
Right?
Yeah, there's always that pizza vibe, but you can just pick that up anywhere,
Yeah,
So
and I've been a very picky person about pizza, just like Italian food in general.
sure.
I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but I grew up, in the New York area.
Oh
So
yeah,
so
no,
there,
then you know.
my neighbors were Sicilian. There were so many Italian people in Stamford where I grew up that all the Italian restaurants were super legit and and different. Like once I worked in South Florida for a few years before coming up to DC. You just can't. It is something in the water. You cannot get that kind of Italian food outside of the New York area. Just like you can't get a good Jewish bagel
Yes,
outside of the New York. Can't.
that's exactly right. Have you ever been to Philomena in Georgetown?
I have been to Filomena's. That's about as close as I've ever come to a
I
really
got
great
you.
Italian meal.
That's what I normally hear.
Yeah, yeah. It was really tasty. But there is there's nothing like like the
New York.
red and white checkered places going on in New York.
Oh,
Well,
totally.
in Connecticut, where you know, but you love what you grow up with. You know what
Yeah,
you
of
get.
course. Well, it's making me want to take a trip. So
Right? Exactly. Maybe that'll be it. You'll take like a food tour. I think a lot of people will be taking food tours.
just totally,
Once this is going on. Hey, it's another way to pivot, right?
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope everything kind of pans out sooner rather than later. And if people want to reach out to Washington Talent, tell the good people how to reach you.
Well, our phone lines are still open and operational, so you can call us there or email us in on the website. It can be info@washingtontalent.com. And again, if you Google us or anything, our main line is up there, 301-762-1800. So please call us. We're ready.
Fantastic. They're still taking phone calls. Things are
We
still going to
are
happen post COVID somehow, some way.
operating as normal as we can.
Exactly. All right, Jake. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Trish, thanks so much. All right.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.